Hello, everybody. Foxy is here with me, as always. Hello.
Hello.
And we are here for a mini ebi-sode, as we call them. I believe you came up with that one.
Yes, I did. I love that name.
Yeah. I think the first one was the Legend of the Mystical Ninja, like extra stuff we showed off. So this will be number 2.
Oh, it's been so long since we've done them. Yeah, I did the last one. Wow.
Yeah. Although I don't know how many it will end up being, because I think we both have a lot to say, but we wanted to take some time to talk about the Goemon anime.
Yes.
It's kind of like a side thing to the games. You know, it sort of exists in its own, like, bubble universe, so to speak. But we figured... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, we figured if we're covering everything Goemon on this channel, we may as well look into the anime too. So...
Yeah, this really, if you want to talk about how loose this is compared to what goes on in the Goemon universe, this is like... its own thing altogether.
Yeah, so. Basically not connected at all, which you'll see as we talk about it. Yeah, so originally we were just going to watch the sort of main Goemon anime series for this, but then we also remembered that there were 2 OVAs.
Yes! Which
were graciously uploaded to YouTube last year by Goemon International with English subtitles.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. They're about a half hour each, so a lot more bite-sized than the 23 episode series or whatever that we watched.
We watched those afterwards, so we had gone through the series, we had our feelings, and then we watched these, and it changed a few things for me.
Oh, for me too, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, if you're ready, we'll just jump right in.
Sounds good.
Starting with the earliest one, which would be the 1991 OVA, Ganbare Goemon, I'm going to try this, Jigen Jo no Akumu.
Bravo.
That is Nightmare in the Dimensional Castle in English. Yes, this was... Actually, you couldn't buy this when it first came out. And this was something that I found out when I was doing some research for this. It was part of the big, 5th anniversary celebration that they did for Goemon. Yeah, Foxy, I don't know if you remember, but the original Japanese commercial for Yukihime, aka Legend of the Mystical Ninja, made a big deal about the 5th anniversary. Remember, there was the big 20th Century Fox style thing?
Well, at the beginning of the OVA, they showed the same thing, so I thought they were connected in that way.
Yeah. And they were connected more than I thought, because it turns out that this OVA was actually a prize given out to certain people who bought that game.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was like a lottery thing, I think. So it's not everybody got one, but if you were one of the lucky few, you'd get this too. So that was cool. Well,
just a heads up for those that don't know about this OVA. We had I'll say overall, had a good time.
But we had a great time. Yeah. No, this was by far the most fun I had watching any of this stuff. And you share that opinion, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, I share that wholeheartely. That was one of the best things about this entire experience, this entire mini episode that we're talking about. The stuff that it was just the best.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, do you mind if I go through a quick plot synopsis for this before we get into sort of what we thought of it?
Go for it.
All right. So, we start with a giant castle falling from outer space and crashing to Earth. A little alien walks into Hagure Town and kidnaps Omitsu for his master, who lives in the castle. Goemon hears about it, and he and Ebi have to make it up to the top, but each floor is sort of in another dimension themed after different Konami properties. Specifically in order, it's Gradius, Castlevania, and Twinbee. And each time they become characters from the game and have to sort of remember who they are and that they're trying to save Omitsu, and then they can escape. So finally, they make it to the top, and before they can save Omitsu, the big ugly alien lord transforms into like an anime pretty boy, and Omitsu is so smitten with him that she decides to marry him. But then, at the wedding, he transforms back into the alien, and Omi disowns him. Henchman transforms him again, and she's smitten again, rinse and repeat, with a depressed Goemon looking on. The end. So obviously I skimmed over a bunch there, but I'll give the floor to you, Foxy. What did you think about this one overall?
I had an overall great time. I didn't know what to expect at first. At first, while we were watching it, we were listening and hearing a lot of music from the Super Nintendo game.
Yeah, they literally just ripped it right out.
They ripped it right off of it into this, and it took a while for them to finally show Goemon and Ebi, but it was like, up until that point, it was like, okay, we're seeing these people talk about stories and different things. And then we saw Omitsu show up.
Yeah, right, they had her cool. Little tea house where they talk about UFOs and stuff. Yeah,
we still hadn't seen Goemon or Ebi at that point. I'm like, are we ever going to see them? and then they started off with the castle, and I looked at it. I'm like, man, this gives me like Tower of Death vibes.
Definitely,
like Bruce Lee and stuff. I'm like, this is really cool.
Mysterious castle from outer space.
I didn't know what to expect at first, and going through the different stages and different things. By the way, I just want to say one thing. You had mentioned one of the floors was Castlevania.
Yes.
Which I actually think it was
Haunted
Castle.
Haunted Castle, which was like, what, the original arcade version?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It was actually Haunted Castle, from what I remember.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Because I heard the wedding music and everything, I thought, okay. And the Haunted Castle, like for an arcade game, I couldn't stand that game. I love the series, but
was it still Simon Belmont at that point? Because I think Goemon says, like, I'm Simon Belmont.
I think it was. Yes, it was still Simon Belmont at that time.
Wow.
I'm sorry, I went ahead to talk about that, but I was just kind of thinking about.
I think that's great. Yeah, because that's something I would never have known. Because you're definitely more of a Castlevania fan than I am. I love Castlevania, but I know that you have played most of the games in the series.
Yeah, but what made it so cool is the characters, Goemon and Ebi, when they went into these worlds, like the Gradius world and such, they embraced the entire world for themselves as if they were literally part of that world.
Yeah, they became the characters of that world, basically.
Yeah, yeah, they became the characters, and it took like right till near like the end of like some kind of like boss fight or something to finally click in them. They're like, oh wait. We don't belong in this game.
Yep,
let's move on. And they would just move on from that scene, kind of leave it behind. I thought that was so funny and brilliant.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think a big reason that I love this one so much is because it captures that sort of wacky energy of Goemon really, really well.
Yeah.
And just sort of the energy of early Konami in general. It kind of reminded me of YY World a lot. And that sort of era where Konami was doing all kinds of, crossover stuff and just having fun with their IPs and throwing them together in silly ways,
It made you miss that kind of, like they would just kind of embrace having this kind of universe of their own, basically.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
It was nice to see that charm in this one too. That's going to be a big word for this video, guys, is charm, because this is about as much charm as you're going to get.
Yeah. In our opinion, I want to preface everything by saying, I'm sure there are people who love the series and stuff. We weren't as hot on it, but nope. This is all just kind of how we felt coming to it.
But this OVA was, I love it. I would watch it again. I had a good time.
Yeah.
How about you?
I mean, I mostly agree with everything you're saying. Like. Even outside of the big three that we mentioned, like Gradius, Twinbee, Castlevania, there were still all kinds of cameos outside of that.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning, Goemon and Ebi are playing Antarctic Adventure. There's a Lupin the Third reference which you caught. Like that isn't even a Konami thing.
No, it's not. I caught it immediately.
Yeah.
Well. Well, it's kind of funny because that series has its own Goemon.
Yeah,
so it's like,
and it wasn't even him. It was like Jigen,
It was Jigen. Yeah, it just made it even better because I understood like what they were trying to do with it too. It just felt like a big love letter, and still shocked that only so many people got this back in the day. Like,
I know.
This is something that should have been, like, this would have given Konami so much. I don't know how to call it. It would have been. It's just been really great for more people to see this thing.
Definitely. Well, and you know, there were a lot of, you know, Konami's classic games that did make their way to the U.S., but I feel like this one, starring Goemon in particular, and kind of leaning into the more Japanese aspects, like, I guess I can see why they didn't release it here. But man, I would have loved to have had this when I was younger.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so there's like all those fun little Easter eggs and stuff. The theming was perfect for each world. You know, each one was done in like a different art style. There were fun references like Gradius. You know, they're fighting the big core boss. My favorite was in the Haunted Castle section. There's a part where they like get knocked down the stairs. Do you remember this? And it's they just fall just like you do in Castlevania.
It was so perfect.
And like Simon's girlfriend falls in love with Goemon. Twin Bee, they obviously did the top-down gameplay view where they're like shooting bells and getting power-ups.
The clouds and the bells and everything, and having that view, it was like, oh man, they know their product. They know what they're doing with their product. I mean, this is so cool.
I know. Yeah. I remember the inside of Twin Bee is like a giant Super Famicom controller too. It's just really fun. And outside of the Konami references, there were a bunch of references to the Goemon games too. Like at one point, Goemon and Ebi like sleep at an inn, you know, and they also end up at like a hot spring. And of course, Ebi is in the women's bath, and they do like the coin throw thing at the end. So it just feels very faithful to the sort of spirit of Goemon.
Now, the one thing that didn't make sense to me was there's a lot of times they would dress up as characters from these games, or they would turn into these characters from the games, basically. But Ebi one time turned into a doctor. Am I thinking right?
That was in the Castlevania one, yeah.
But why?
I don't know. Like, if you're a bigger Castlevania head than me. Do you have any idea who that was?
I have no idea. Outside of maybe there was a laboratory in that one, because I mean, every Castlevania has a laboratory that they. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know why they would have
there's always a fallback explanation. Because he's Dr. Yang. He just goes in his doctor clothes. Yeah.
Oh, because they knew ahead of time when we're going to bring this over to English, Dr. Yang. There we go.
Yeah. It was with Legend of the Mystical Ninja, so there you go. I mean,
yep.
It all lines up.
You solved it. You solved the mystery. If any of you guys know about that mystery, let us know down below.
Yep. Anyway, I'm getting kind of long in the tooth here, so we'll move on. But I also wanted to call out the music was really good. Like you said, that was ripped from Mystical Ninja, but then also the other games they go through, there's Gradius music in there and stuff. And specifically the song for the end credits I wanted to mention, because that was actually a rendition of the title theme for Legend of the Mystical Ninja, but it was sung by a pretty famous classical Japanese singer, Michiya Mihashi. Hopefully I said that right. Which I think that was also commissioned for the 5th anniversary stuff, so that's so cool too.
They really went all out.
They did, yeah, and it was amazing. But not much else to say about it. I loved it. It was a ton of fun.
Yep, recommend it. Give it a watch. Thank you again, Goemon International, for translating and showing it to us, or giving it to, allowing us to see it. So. Yep,
and thank you to Goemon International for the next thing we're going to talk about. Also.
Yep.
Not quite as enjoyable for me, but I feel like we've kind of already we've already hinted at that. I'm sure not everyone will share that opinion, but with that terrible segue, let us move on to the second OVA, Ganbare Goemon Chikyu Kyushutsu Daisaksen, or Earth Rescue Operation.
You could say it a lot better than I can.
I guess. I'm always worried that I'm just totally butchering it.
You are totally fine.
Yep. So this was 7 years later. This was released 1998. Technically after the anime series, but I figure we just get the OVAs out of the way first, if that sounds good to you.
That sounds good to me.
All right. So this one was made by an educational film company, which becomes pretty apparent near the end. That kind of brings me to a point that is going to apply to both this and the anime series we're going to talk about, and that is that we're not really the target audience for this.
No.
This one in particular was kind of made to teach kids about pollution, you know. judging it from that angle, it's fine. You know, it does its job.
This one kind of, for us, dragged on a little too long.
Yeah, but it was only a half hour. So, like, the fact that it felt like it did really says a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was cool to see some characters in this that we hadn't seen in a little while. Which I thought, that was the kind of my like, big highlight. I thought, okay, here we go. I think what kind of ruined a good chunk of the movie for me is the opening.
Yeah, I remember you calling that out, where it's like, oh, they're just spoiling the entire thing right at the beginning.
The opening of this video showed pretty much the entire plot to us in credits form. It was like, what? We're gonna watch the movie. Are we done watching the movie already?
Basically, yeah. I mean, we didn't really get that much out of watching the rest.
Throughout the entire point of it, or the entire moment of it, I kept thinking, all right, here comes this part. Oh, here they go. They're going to look at each other.
Yeah, and going on and looking at each other. I remember that one specifically in front of the door.
I remember. I'm like, you can just tell because they already showed it to us. So that kind of was a big bummer for me.
Yeah. But, I mean, you know, there wasn't a lot of plot to spoil, it turns out.
There was a lot of garbage in this one.
Yes, literal and metaphorical.
Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, like I said, it's for kids. I feel like it's got enough sort of cartoon action to keep them somewhat engaged while delivering this sort of environmental message, but coming at this from the perspective of fans of the games like us, there just isn't a lot here.
There's not a lot to talk about, to be honest.
Yeah,
it was just kind of bad guy. You know, a bad guy of the week. They saved the day, and they they give us a message about pollution, and that's it. Yep.
Okay. So just like the last one, I'll go through the plot real quick, but like I said, there isn't much. All
right.
So Sepikumaru and the Sujikiri from Goemon 4 are parading around town, luring kids in with toys and kidnapping them. And when I say town, like, this is kind of inexplicably set in the modern day. Like, the anime series is too, but at least they have an explanation for it. But that's kind of a digression. Goemon, Ebi-sode, Sasuke, Yae, and Impact infiltrate Sepikumaru's like sports ship, you know, from Goemon 4, which is funny because he doesn't really mention sports outside of that in this. But they're sort of brainwashing these kids with like colorful lights and songs and stuff. They fight off the Sujikiri, but Sepikumaru uses the kids to attack them, so they have to retreat. Later, the bad guys end up sending the kids to steal garbage from towns and just sort of spread it across Japan. And eventually, the good guys manage to infiltrate the ship again, which is now full of all that trash. Goemon and Omitsu go in while the others create a diversion outside. They manage to sort of de-hypnotize the kids by dancing around and chanting about Sepikumaru, how bad he is, you know, a lot. I remember for both you and me, we were like, is this still going on? Like, are they still dancing around?
It was just like they kept bringing back like the dancing around and moving about. And it's like, can we just move on? Wake up, or whatever it was. Just wake up.
I know. Yeah, like it's like you were saying at the beginning. Like, it wasn't very long, but it felt long.
They padded it out basically for a 30-minute video. We saw pretty much 15 minutes worth.
Yeah, pretty much.
It stretched out way too long. Yeah.
So anyway, the kids beat the crap out of Sepikumaru and he runs away. Goemon and friends go home. This is where Wise Man lectures to them about pollution for a few minutes. Then the kids show up at the end in like ninja outfits to say thank you. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've said a lot about what there is to be said. Like, it's very similar in tone to the anime series. I think the company that made this basically took all their cues from that, because there's very little influence from the games themselves. You know, like I said, it's a modern setting, same bad guys, etc. The only big difference is that the kids from the anime series aren't here. You know, the non-Goemon characters.
No, they're not. Yeah,
but they're different kids. There is one other difference, though, and is that there are different voice actors. That's kind of a fun fact I found out about this. So all 4 main characters in this are voiced by the same actors that they were in Mystical Ninja 64.
Fantastically.
So that's kind of cool. Yeah, in the anime series, I think it's just Ebi-sode that has the same voice actor. That's Kenichi Ogata, who is like the only really consistent voice actor throughout all the Goemon stuff, I think. The other characters kind of had different actors come and go.
Yep.
I know Goemon's game actor like switched around this time, so like Goemon in this is the actor from Goemon 4 and Mystical Ninja, but Goemon in the anime is voiced by the guy who did him in the later games. Anyway, there's a whole other rabbit hole. But
that's a lot of different stuff there, yeah. That's good to know, though. Yeah.
Yep. I will say that it looks better than the Goemon anime series, at least.
That's the funny part, because this almost feels like a pilot to the Goemon anime series, and yet, it's I don't know, it looks better, even though it's not what it is.
Like, characters actually have shading on them. Imagine that.
Oh my god. Oh, it gets me wanting to talk about.
We'll get there. We'll get there soon.
We'll get there. Yes.
Like the anime series had all these animation issues were at least less, visible here. There's still some weirdness, but overall, it's just a bit more visually appealing.
Yeah.
And there's a few fun moments. Like, one of the ones that I had noted was Ebi, he has his ribbon and ball from Goemon 4, and he, bounces it on a Suzukiri's head, At one point, he, claps his hands to try and de-hypnotize the kids, and they just run him over, and that got a laugh out of me. But, yeah, there's just, like we said, kind of a lot of boring parts, for lack of a better term.
Not much more we can really talk about with this one, to be honest.
Yeah. Other than the full-on PSA at the end with Wise Man. Like, there are many kinds of pollution. We need to take care of the planet. It's just...
Oh boy, that's what I want to do.
Yes. So that was the moment when I was like, okay, this is actually something they would force kids to watch in school.
Then it felt like a kid should. One of those random things like, oh, we gotta get our kids to get through a class. We don't have a lesson for them. Throw on a movie. Here you go.
Right, exactly. So anyway, not for us. But like I said before, it wasn't really made for us, so I'm not going to judge it too harshly because I'm not a Japanese school child.
No.
This is kind of whatever. It's there.
It's what it is, yes.
Yep. So, with that, let us move on to the main event.
All right.
The 23-episode anime series. It is anime Ganbare Goemon in Japan, Legend of the Mystical Ninja in English. It ran from October 97 to March 1998 on TBS and was later adapted internationally by ADV. Now, as an aside, you and I have a lot of history with ADV.
We do have a big history with ADV films and stuff that they brought over. It was pretty much the heart and core of the type of anime we watched back in the day.
Yeah, I know both of us had a ton of VHSs, that they had did. I know we referenced the "do it now" thing all the time.
I mean, and the thing is, back then with anime, you could get anime no problem and watch it no problem. But back then, the VHS tapes, you're talking 1 or 2 episodes, $30, $40.
Oh man, we'd always go into Suncoast Video. Yeah, and
it was expensive back in the day.
Yeah.
So, and then finally, a few years later, I saw this box set for this thing. I'm like, what is this? We got a Mystical Ninja! Oh my god!
I know. Little did you know.
Little did I know. I wondered, why did they bring this over? I'm kidding.
Yeah. ADV's defunct now, aren't they? I don't think they're around anymore.
I think they might be around as a small company. I can't give you full details on that. I have no idea.
Okay, yeah, I'll find out for the video.
Sounds good.
But yes. Good. Anyway, Foxy and I watched the whole series over the course of a few months. Made it to the end. Wasn't always easy.
No, it wasn't. There were sometimes it was. Sometimes the episodes were okay, but then sometimes were just kind of ugh.
Oh man. So before we get into our feelings on it, do one more overview here.
Okay.
It starts with Goemon and his friends coming out of a video game in pursuit of, once again, Seppuku and the Suzukiri, but this time they've come into the human world to free their evil lord, Muuge, who I'm pretty sure was invented for this series. Like, neither of us...
I don't know of any series that this guy was in. So.
Yeah, But anyway, so it's not the same Seppuku from Goemon 4. They basically repurposed the characters. But anyway, they want to bring him through some kind of dimensional tunnel by causing rage amongst the populace. And that's usually by doing something completely innocuous, like making the food too spicy or the train too crowded, etc. It's never anything overly evil. Yeah, the rage gauge. Oh man! When people are sufficiently angry, it'll fill the gauge. He can summon a giant robot, and of course, Goemon has to stop him with impact. Every episode follows pretty much this exact same formula. It's very Sentai-esque in its structure, I would say.
Sentai-esque, formulaic, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they did that on purpose. I don't know. But yeah, so anyway, they come into the world through a TV. The TV is owned by a Japanese boy named Tsukasa. And he and his family sort of become the Goemon characters, like, host family in this world. It's just him and his mom and dad, really. They do have a dog that sneezes sometimes, but that's about it.
You can't forget the sneezing dog. No.
Like, he appears for like a few seconds each episode just to do something random.
But he only does that for part of the series, and that's something we will talk about when it comes to running themes for the series too. Because there's some that happen, and then they just kind of drop.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
But anyway, let's talk about the beginning of the series.
Yes. So the plot mostly revolves around, for any given episode, whatever's going on in Tsukasa's life usually involves his crush Asuka and his stuck-up classmate Noboru. And in some cases, the Goemon characters are just incidental to the plot. More on that later. Anyway, Seppuku is the bad guy for only the first half, after which Muuge decides he's failed too much and gets rid of him, and instead switches him out for Dr. Mudanashi and his henchman Mr. Protein. And these guys I know are original characters.
Yeah, they weren't anywhere else that I know of.
Yeah, Mudanashi is like a mad scientist whose main thing is that he's allergic to waste. And Protein is basically just a gay muscle man. He doesn't really have much character beyond that.
It really is. I mean, they didn't go too deep into anything else but that for him.
Yeah.
I think they tried. They almost showed...
For like one episode, yeah, but then that's the problem. They just threw it away at the end.
That, like I said, that goes with running themes and stuff.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah,
anyway, at the end... Spoiler alert, they go to space. Muuge almost gets out of his dimensional tunnel, but they close it on him and save the day, so he never really gets to do anything. Yay! The end. So there's the overall plot of the series.
Overall plot, it just ends. You really hope that something big would happen with it, and... Nope.
Well, they do have like a 2-part finale, which I was kind of excited about. I was like, oh man, what are they going to do? Turns out not all that much.
It really just stretched out. It was one stretched out one episode, basically.
Yeah. So most episodes revolve around sort of like a different aspect of modern Japanese life. School, sports, holidays, art, etc.
Yep, you had Christmas episodes.
Yep, the Christmas one with Ebi-sode. I don't know if I liked the episode, but I remember liking the Santa stuff. Anyway,
Oh,
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think that episode was also the one that Kamara left, and then they brought in Dr. Moon.
Oh, okay. I don't remember. See, it's all kind of started to blur together for me. But yeah, it like the second OVA that we were talking about. It very much feels kind of geared towards younger audiences. So, trying to keep that in mind as we talk about it. Anyway. Is there anything else that you wanted to say, like at a high level, about what you thought of it before we get into all the little nitpicky stuff?
There's really not a lot to explain to go into detail outside of going into the detail of every episode, to be honest, because it just felt like the same thing, and it was like, are we done yet?
Yeah.
So I think it'd be best to start talking about it and then go into.
Well, how about we start with what we liked about it to sort of start off with a positive spin.
Okay, positive spin. What we liked about it.
Yeah. So I'll go first.
All right.
We watched it in Japanese with subtitles, so the voice acting was that was one of the bright spots. As we mentioned before, we got some of the voice actors from the games, and the performances on the whole were pretty good. Gave them a lot of character, And when those characters, the Goemon characters, do get a chance to shine, they usually feel pretty authentic and are written pretty well. For the most part, looking at you, Omitsu, but Ebi-sode is especially good. As I said before, he's my favorite part. He's responsible for a lot of the fun for me. He's very much the same sort of carefree, food-loving goofball that he is in the games, and I feel like his personality comes through really well.
Ebi was the star of the show for me.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like what they did with Ebi and his goofiness, because he's got that yo-ho type, just goofiness going on with him, that they captured that so well. And I felt like Goemon, Sasuke, and Yai even, I felt like they kind of were trapped in the formula of the show. Where Ebi was like, he just wants to go eat, and go eat his food or whatever. He just did his own thing.
Yeah. No, the other three were definitely more just the plot drivers. They were there to help Tsukasa out, and they retained parts of their personalities. Goemon was still sort of the hot-headed one. Sasuke was more rational, and Yai was the responsible one.
There's one cast member we didn't talk about that they kind of changed his attitude. I mean, from the game to the cartoon, and that's Impact.
Yes, actually, quite a bit.
Yeah, Impact was really different in this series because when you look at him at first, he's like this little teeny doll that follows him around.
Yeah,
basically. And the thing is, Goemon has to blow the horn in order for him to get greater skill.
He can't blow the horn until he has Omitsu's Ohagi, which is the weird rice ball thing. And if he doesn't, he'll blow the horn and it'll make the fart sound.
I swear, every episode, no joke, guys, almost every episode, he starts off with the horn. He's going to start off going and mess up. And he's like, "Oh, I need the Ohagi that Omitsu made for me." It was like, come on, just.
Well, I mean, it was funny the first time.
The first time it was great.
After the 10th, it's like, oh, come on.
It's in episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's every episode the same thing happens. It's like, come on, please. Yeah. I know they're reusing animation to keep it fresh or whatever. There was even one. I'm sorry, I have to explain this.
I like how we're okay, we'll start with the things we liked, and then just immediately start bashing on it, because there's really not much.
Really, and that's how this whole thing was. I liked how stupid parts of these were. There were times where they'd blow the horn, it'd grow, and then it's like, oh no, we got to retreat, and it would be like a minute or two later, and then he has to blow the horn again to make it big again.
Yeah, that was what.
Why did you just stay big?
Well, the reason, and that was because they needed to make up some of that animation time.
they had to give us an extra minute or so of time for them to do the animation. But I was like, why? I don't know why they do that. Why they just? Oh god.
Hey, you want to see that Impact transformation again? Here you go.
There you go. Let's watch it again.
And then at the end too, it's always the same thing. Whenever he beats the robot.
Yeah, they always show the same thing. He do his pose with the Mount Fuji in the back or whatever, the pedals flying by. And,
yep. Like I said, it's so repetitive.
Impact was the most infuriating thing about the episodes for me. Like, it's just because of, like, you get like the plot. The plot wouldn't be that good, but then once you got to Impact, you knew it's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's the same exact thing. It's like, do I need to even write notes about this? No,
it can all be boiled down to Impact beats the robot. Happily ever after the end.
There is never a time where the robot has an advantage over Impact. Impact is always OP.
Though there are times when they have an advantage over him, but it never lasts very long. It's like he hits one setback, and half the time it's caused by Goemon or the characters in the mech, like getting controlled or like being too fat. Remember the one where they're like too fat to pilot Impact?
I remember that too. Yeah. Gosh.
That was really funny to me, but they made that joke more than once. They did it in 2 separate episodes, and that's kind of at the core of what I'm talking about. There's just so much repetition.
Yeah, they really had to pad it out to get these episodes out.
Yeah.
But not only that, I mean, are we going to be talking about each episode individually?
No, I mean, not unless you want to. There's 23
No, I'm totally
of them.
fine with it. That's fine. I'm just going to tell you one thing. From the start to the end, you could see kind of this weird dip in quality.
Yeah.
When it came to the things going on.
I definitely had that in my notes. Like, wow, this animation's getting real dicey, isn't it?
My favorite moment, I'm just going to mention this, my favorite moment that we saw the dip in quality. We how many times did we rewind? There was Yai. Yai was running. And we rewound that, I don't know how many times. We're like, we got to see that again. We gotta see
like
that
the
again.
Weird little hop thing. Okay, I'll put that on screen for sure. It was so ridiculous.
She was trying to run, and they just made her hop across. It's like, wow, what budget quality? Like,
and that's not even mentioning like all of the times the proportions are just like constantly changing.
The heads are wrong.
Size of things, the way that they're drawn. It's all just totally inconsistent from one scene to the next, and sometimes within the same scene.
A lot of times they're bigger than the humans. Sometimes they're smaller than the humans.
If I had a nickel for every time one of the characters' heads just expanded for no reason, or they just like suddenly went cockeyed, or some facial feature just drifted off across their face, I'd have a lot of nickels, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you would. Oh, guys, it's such an experience with it, because you wonder why. Well, first off, I wondered why was this made the way it was, because of the budget or whatever. But then I think to myself, why did ADV Films feel like it was worth bringing this over for us to see? Especially
when most of the Goemon games aren't even localized. It's like, did you really think that this was going to hit with American audiences over, like, the video games?
The fact that the plots weren't any... Like, the plot of this was... I mean, Goemon was second to the real life, the real world.
Yeah, Tsukasa and the kids.
That was the most infuriating thing for us.
Oh yeah, no, that was really my biggest issue with this series, is that it's not actually about Goemon.
No, it's not. It's not really about Legend of the Mystical Ninja. It's not about Goemon. It's about Tsukasa. And how much of a jerk he is with everything going on around him, and how greedy he can be, and
those characters are just completely unlikable. Like, I don't know, maybe some people will disagree with me on that. But like, Tsukasa is supposed to be our hero, and most of the time he's just selfish, or jealous over Asuka. Like, and I get if it's like, oh well, he's a little kid, little kids act that way. It's like, sure, but I still don't like him.
Yeah, there's a lot about him you just don't like, and he was very over dramatic with a lot of stuff that happened, and it was like, I understand this is for the plot, and oh, it was a mistake. Oh, whatever.
Oh yeah, so many like misunderstandings, and his
especially.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, especially with Asuka.
Yeah.
Oh, she
is always blowing him off to spend time with the rich kid,
Tramp.
Yeah, well, she's just super surface level personality that she's written with, and she likes them fighting over her. It's like, God, she's I like, really don't like any of these characters.
She knows they're fighting for her attention and all that, but it's like she's just like she's not really sensitive to Sakasa's feelings, but at the same time, she doesn't really do anything to the villain's feelings either, and it's just like she's playing them all.
I know. Well, I know you mentioned to me Noboru actually ended up being your favorite of the three, even though he was supposed to be like the bully, the one you're not supposed to like.
He's this bully guy, but at the same time, I feel like he's got the most interesting plot things that go on with him, even though he's like, my mother could afford this, I can afford this. Even though he's like that, at least he's not like a jealous a-hole like Tsukasa is. Like
right.
like at least like, hey, Asuka, you want to do this thing that my family can afford to do? Sure. And Tsukasa's like, I'm so jealous. Oh, and it's like, well, yeah, but their family can afford it. That's just how it is. Sorry, why don't you do things with her that you can afford? No, you get all jealous and like, I want to be a part of it.
Well, and I my main thing is like, why even still hang around her if she's doing this to you? Like 24/7.
But I love her. It's like, no, you.
Well, but that was the same problem I had with Omitsu. Like, pretty much all the female characters in this show are terrible. With the exception of Yai. She isn't really given much to do, but at least she's mostly portrayed as like, competent and responsible like she is in the games. But
there was a character I liked in the beginning, and that was Sakasa's mom. I thought Sakasa's mom at the beginning was great, and then they gave us a cooking episode where she was misunderstanding what was going on.
Right, something with the tie, and she's like, "Oh, you didn't remember? Now I hate you."
We've heard this plot 20 times already, and here we go. And she fell for the same thing. It was like, why? Why'd you ruin a good character?
Yeah,
she was all
just gets
like
so tiring because it's always the same.
Yeah,
like I said, Omitsu is like, she's always finding Goemon around other girls, blowing up at him and sulking. It's just like I said with Tsukasa. It's just like, why do you put up with this, Goemon?
It's just always these misunderstandings. Why do they put up with these? I mean,
like I don't know. Omitsu is still like, I like her a lot the way that she's written in the games, but I feel like in this they just did her so dirty.
Yeah. Well, do you know who I think they really did dirty?
Who?
And Mr. Protein.
Yeah.
The android. I think they did him an injustice in this series. Even though he showed up in the second half, what happened? I mean, they showed him kind of develop these emotions. You could tell the way he acted. He may have been more,
inclined to a certain certain type.
Basically. And there were times where, like, what was that one episode? The robot disguising episode? Or whatever,
yep. Mm-hmm.
Where Mr. Protein and this other disguised robot of Sasuke. I mean, it was obviously Sasuke. Why didn't they just show Sasuke? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's the pumpkin robot, right?
The pumpkin robot, yeah. Mr. Protein fell in love with Sasuke because Sasuke had a mind of his own. And Mr. Protein did too, so he's like, wow, someone that's familiar with me. And eventually he developed these feelings for Sasuke.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really... And then we saw that develop for a couple episodes of like, wow, his feelings for Sasuke, makes him question whether he should stay the way he is or not.
Yeah, like keep helping the doctor.
I'm like, that's a good plot device that's going on here. And so then we get to a certain episode where, like, right at the end of the episode, his feelings are taken out of him by the doctor or whatever because,
Yeah, that was that episode.
Yeah.
Like, he's just rewired at the end. And that's, again, we were talking about how everything just resets at the end of each episode. Like, that's an example of that.
Yeah, he had like these evil eyes and everything. Just like, oh no, now we've lost him. I thought, oh, they're gonna build up on this, and Sasuke's probably gonna bring him back in some way. I thought this was gonna be really cool. Next episode, back to normal.
Yep,
he's completely back to normal. He's not evil. He's not anything. He's just back to who he was before. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Why did you not explore this? This is actually pretty good.
I know. Yeah. Every time there was like a development where I was like, oh, okay, this could lead to something interesting. It just never did.
It was so upsetting.
Yeah. Yeah. And, kind of like what I was saying earlier about how like the series focuses on the stuff that isn't Goemon related, like, what I would have loved to see in a Goemon anime is just like focusing on what is memorable about the games, meaning like the setting, the old Edo setting and the offbeat humor, like there wasn't really any of that here. Because, they made the choice to do it in like a modern Japan. And I think maybe part of that was because they wanted to show, and this is just kind of conjecture on my part, but they wanted a show where, like, it was relatable situations for kids in Japan, And so they're like, okay, we'll have an episode about the train, we'll have one about the circus, or whatever,
Yeah.
But, like, it just didn't, it made it feel like it wasn't Goemon at all. Like, they don't...
This kind of...
Oh, go ahead.
I would say they could have been anybody else. They could have made this into a series of like any other product IP out there, and just kept the human people, and it would have been pretty much the same.
Yeah, yeah.
You just felt like Goemon and Ebi and those guys, they didn't contribute enough to the show to make it really about them. It was never about them.
Right. Yeah. I know I said it to you when we were watching, but it felt to me kind of like they wrote a show about these kids in Japan and just kind of tacked on the Goemon stuff later.
Yeah, to give it some kind of IP or something familiar to some, to try to sell the product. Otherwise, it was an extremely boring show.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It became a drag to watch very quickly because we always knew what to expect.
Yeah. But I'm going to be honest, there were a few episodes that kind of had a few highlights for me. I would say. A few things that stood out for me. One thing that made me laugh really hard, actually, was, I believe it was episode 15, it was the artist episode.
Yes, I know what you're going to say, because I had this down too.
Where, like, it started off, like, they saw, like, this big piece of art, and it was, mistaken as a monster, and, there's some really, okay, we'll talk about the wise man here throughout the series in a moment, but, like, I remember, like, Tsukasa cheated on an art project, and because he entered something that wasn't his, and then he was sent to the artist of the big art piece that they saw, whatever
statue,
who apparently lived in a junk pile. And when you see the guy, my first reaction was Charlie Brown.
He's wearing yellow. He's got the bald head
and the outfit and everything. He reminded me of Charlie Brown, but he's bulkier, so I called him Charlie Braun.
We ended up, that's a good example. We ended up making a lot of sort of our own fun while watching this, because we kind of had to.
I think I may have fallen asleep during a few episodes.
No, I'm pretty sure you did, and I don't blame you. It's 2 hours later for you. If it was for me, I probably would have too. Like you said, there's no reason to stay awake. It's always the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, but you brought up Wise Man. I feel like this is a good opportunity to talk about him.
That was in my notes for this episode because he was disgusting.
So off-putting.
So disgusting for an old man. Like Master Roshi in Dragon Ball Z, he's a goof, and he's, looking at women, and things like that. But, like, Wise Man takes it one step further and becomes, like, a pedophile and stuff. It's terrible, guys.
Like, you are not exaggerating. This is for anybody listening. Like,
I
most
don't
of
even
his
need to say it
plans
that way that much, but his plans always involve, let's take pictures of women,
of underage girls specifically.
Yeah, it's gross,
dude.
Sometimes
the one that I remember the most, there's an episode where he invents like this time traveling watch, and the purpose of this is that he can spy on literal babies after they grow into teenage girls. Like, he'll turn into the future. Oh, I wonder what she would look like as a... So gross.
I'm sorry. Oh, God, I totally blocked that out of my memory because it was so gross. Oh, God, I remember. Oh, no.
Like, I realize there are cultural differences, with that stuff with America and Japan, but boy... Did it go into real skeevy territory?
It was with Wise Man. It was disgusting.
Dude, you know what else? Omitsu is his granddaughter in this for some reason. There's an episode where he just touches her ass.
Yeah,
like on purpose. I'm like, okay, this is somebody related to you now. Like, oh my god, it's just.
Well, I remember there was the skiing episode. I think that was episode 13, and. Like, there were people skating and stuff like that, and Wise Man was just there just to catch the upskirts of whenever they were skating. Mm-hmm. It was like, okay. Like, Wise Man, I don't know about this guy. He was the most disgusting guy throughout the entire. Like, anytime you saw him, you were like,
it was a kid show, which was doubly like WTF.
Yeah. You were like, why did they make him this way?
Mm-hmm.
So
so I don't know, the Goemon characters, like I mentioned, were like had their moments, especially Ebi-sode, but some of the writing was just like not great.
It wasn't. They I feel like they ruined a lot of the characters that we know how they were in the games that we've seen so far through the games that we've played and the games we've grown up with too. They've always had this kind of character to them. The only one I feel like that actually stood out to kind of stay as their own was Ebi.
Yeah.
I think they did some justice with Ebi. What do you think?
Definitely. Yeah. Well, like I said, he was like my favorite part, Like, yeah. Do you remember there's like an earlier episode where they go camping and Ebi eats like these magic mushrooms? And he's just like laughing like a maniac and twirling his ribbon around, and they just sort of leave him freaking out in the wilderness.
It was so right at the end they were still laughing it was perfect. It's totally his character.
Well, and I think both of our favorite episode was episode 20, and that was the one where it was like Ebi-centric,
Yep, it was all about Ebi basically.
That was the one where like he was trying to find Sasuke and he was really bummed because he let him go, but like the whole episode was just about him, and he was really funny. Like he kind of made that episode, and that was one of the few that we got to the end of and we were like, that was good.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't perfect. It still had the tropes that we don't like, but at the same time it was probably the best written episode we had seen because it brought back what we liked about, the character and Ebi and why we like about these characters. You feel frustrated by the end, like at least for me, by the end of the entire series, I was disappointed and frustrated because I felt like the characters, that they tried to portray were not there.
Yeah.
It was so not fair for the series to treat the characters that we like the way they did. I don't know, that's how I felt at least.
I totally agree with you. And I think there is something to be said for like an adaptation. It's like things don't always have to be the exact same if you have a good reason to change them. But in this case, it felt like most of the changes were just like, well, you didn't really need to do that. So another good example of that is the bad guys. Seppuku at least had the sports theme in Goemon 4. That angle's kind of done away with, and all he has is the seppuku gag, which kind of gets old after like a few episodes.
Yeah, it is. But thankfully, Sepikamaru goes away, but we never get a redemption for him, and we don't see him ever again in the series.
Yeah, the Tsuzakiri
goes...
stay around, but they're basically just the henchmen. Like, they have a few funny moments here and there, but they're just kind of expendable.
Yep, they are expendable. And speaking of expendable, unfortunately, one of our favorite characters, the sneezing dog, doesn't even sneeze the same way by the end of the series. It feels like they kind of wrote out the sneezing dog, because like almost every episode you'd see the sneeze, rub the nose in the doghouse. It was like at first you're like, oh, they're reusing footage, whatever, but then you kind of look forward to it, and then they take it away from you. And it's like,
yeah, I mean, even the little silly things, kind of disappear after a while.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
I was wondering though, do you think the reason they got rid of Sepikamaru, and this may not be true at all because they had him for a bunch of episodes, but I was wondering maybe if they decided they wanted to kind of steer away from a bad guy who talks about suicide all the time in their kids' show.
I don't know, and then kind of make it even more abundantly about wise man going into liking minors and stuff. I don't know.
No, you're right. It probably had nothing to do with that because, there was all kinds of kind of questionable stuff. But if they did have to swap out the bad guy, like, why not use another villain from the games? There's a lot of good ones. They could have had Jirokabe, McGinnis, like at that time,
By that time, you had McGinnis, Jirokabe. Yeah, I mean, the fact that Sepikamaru is there, anything before that, holy cow, there's a huge amount of choices you can do. You can do the Lord, you can do anybody.
Yeah, really. At least then it would have had kind of more of a connection to the series.
I think the biggest thing we wanted more than anything, when it comes to a Goemon anime or whatever, you want it to be in that setting because, or back, the old Edo town, Oedo Castle, things like that, because it's familiarity. It's things that you want to see in a Goemon situation, basically, where here it's like we're in some random city in Japan that you're helping a school kid with whatever problems he has, and it's like it's what about the kooky adventures that they have in their own world? Can we just get some of that instead? Yeah, no,
that's like I was saying earlier, like I feel like so much of Goemon's identity is tied up in that setting, and so like you take that away, you put them into this modern day, but then you don't even give the characters much to do. So it's like, why is this a Goemon anime? Like, why did you even bother?
Why'd they even bother? That's exactly what we both felt by the end of the entire thing. It made no sense.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't really have that much more to say about it.
The only other thing I want to talk about are the openings and the ending to the series.
Yes.
Because...
Go ahead.
Because the ending had... Oh, boy. Motorcycle. Yeah. We're not non-scripted here. The opening, there were two openings, actually.
Yep.
The funny part is, like, when you think Goemon, you have, like, that kind of traditional Japanese sound that you normally hear.
Yep.
Or something like Goemon related. Here, it was some kind of soft, like, dun 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 dun. It was just like we heard
that so much.
It was too
well, and the scene was all like them floating up with balloons and like all this really that's the thing that I feel gave it the kids show feeling more than anything. It's just that opening. It feels like, oh, I'm watching the Care Bears.
Yeah, it gave you that feeling. I don't know. I don't understand it with that opening. Both openings. There was a second opening they had later on. It was more kind of an upbeat, more anime style, but it made no sense to what Mystical Ninja was about. It was like, I'm only for you, you're only for me, lovey, lovey, love. It was like, what does this have to do with Mystical Ninja? What does it have to do with Mystical Ninja?
Yep. Where like stuff like that I don't mind as much, but it's just the actual show didn't really have much to do with Mystical Ninja either, so.
But I will say the ending song is pretty excellent.
That's still my favorite part about the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The ending, it was cool because it showed all these Goemon, all the characters as different toys. And
like Japanese toys and stuff.
Yeah, they were writing some Japanese toys too and stuff. And it was almost like I wish that they had those as actual products for us to buy.
That'd be amazing. Yeah, I'd buy like the Mitsu Kendama or Sasuke Kendama rather.
But now because of that song, between you and I, that song has so much meaning because, you know, it's anytime we're like, oh, how are you feeling? Oh, I'm feeling okay, you know, things like that.
I will always associate it with our series just because of the Mr. Goemon, you know, like that was the song that supercharged you. Got you through the level.
But we've used it several times throughout the series too now.
It's a good song. It's a banger. I would say don't watch the anime, just listen to that instead.
It's a great banger there, but oh my gosh. I remember you using that song for a bunch of our videos and I mean, I own the single, guys. Thanks to you, I own the single. It's on my shelf right now. Oh,
it even has like a little picture of the Goemon characters in it.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Yep, that's the best part. Okay, 10 out of 10. Goemon anime, 2 out of 10. That's my rating. Anime.
And I'll give Ebi a 5 out of 10 for...
Oh, I'll give Ebi a 10 out of 10.
You give Ebi a 10 out of 10? Okay.
Yep. So, anyway, what I figured would happen happened, and that is that it's just kind of turned into a big rant. But, you know, like... I feel like we've been really down on it. If there are folks out there that like the series, you know, this is just our opinion. There were episodes, you know, like I said, the Ebi one that I liked for the most part. So, you know, I can see a kid in Japan as like their target audience for this, liking it just fine. It's like relatively inoffensive. If you're only watching one episode, the sort of repetition doesn't set in, right? There's nothing really remarkable about it, but, you know, there's a ton of unremarkable cartoons out there. And like, there's just very little of what we love about the games to be found here.
And at the same time, I'm still so glad we were given the opportunity to watch this so that we can talk about it like this, too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they brought it here because at least now, you know, we can talk about... We could talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't feel we really benefited that much from watching it, but...
No, it didn't do anything for us whatsoever.
Yeah.
The OVA did wonders, but this one just...
Yeah, that first OVA, like I said, that was like best in class here.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I don't have any more to say about it, to be honest. If you do, that's, you know...
Yep, well, just so that we don't go out on a sour note... I did want to call out a few of the little notes that I had, moments or scenes that we liked, just stuff that made us laugh, you know, because that did happen from time to time, even if it wasn't quite as often as we may have liked. So, like, this one is just sort of, like, unintentional, but one of the notes that I took from, like, one of the early episodes, I think it was, like, episode 3 or something, you remember the Sasuke soccer ball thing? So there's an episode about soccer, and the players are using Sasuke is like curled up into a ball, and they're using him as their soccer ball. But then in the next shot, he just randomly becomes a regular soccer ball. Like we had to watch it a couple times to be like, did they really do that? Like, and that's one of those places where like the animation mistakes that we talked about sometimes were funny.
It was funny to see some of that. Like, what? Did you catch that? Yeah, okay, well, let's go back. Like, the head would be, like, way too big, or the hand would be way too big, or something. And they never got it right. And again, the series kind of slowly digressed throughout the entire...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll definitely show some examples of the weird animation stuff. Another thing that I liked that I wanted to point out, and I don't know if you remember this, there was one part of the finale where they're showing like American people, and they're just swearing in like really bad English. And we both like burst out laughing at that. There's a guy who's just kicking his TV going,
"Hey, what's happened? Goddamn damn you, son of a bitch shit!"
in a kid's show, of course.
Yeah. Well, it's English, like they probably don't know that. I don't know. English is taught in Japan. Maybe they do. But that was funny for us. And like there was another one where I think it's supposed to be like the American president, and he just goes,
Oh my god!
Oh my god! I remember that.
So like there were moments like that we got a kick out of. I don't know if you had any other examples.
Not that I could think of outside of like the mother. I always go back to the mother episode where she got all jealous because it was like, why? You just kind of really changed her outfit or her character. Basically. Yeah, the mom's oppressed, whatever. But I remember seeing like Princess Tomato, who talked to them about cooking for 3 million yen in a new kitchen and all that, and it's just like her whole attitude was, I can't cook because my husband's a jerk.
Yeah, well, and that's like I said, that's just the way that women are written in that show. It's like they're all jealous and petty, like even the ones that look like they're not.
Well, what I remember about that is there was a robot that was feeding them food, like feeding everybody food.
Yeah,
it was
the
like
potato
forever.
balls or whatever.
Yeah, it was like feeding them forever, and it's like they're getting mad over like being fed forever. It's like, I don't know. It was like the rage gauge really got me a lot.
Yeah, I think the most rage came from us. We probably filled that thing up most of the way.
I feel like we're the ones that filled it up. Yeah.
So yeah, like there were things that we liked about it. I don't want it to seem like this is just like a video where we, it is a video where we bash on the anime, but like
unfortunately it is. I mean,
I wanted to like it. I tried to go in with an open mind,
But if you do like it, you know what? That is great. I mean, you found things in it that we couldn't, and you found things to appreciate that we couldn't. So I mean, that's great.
Yeah. I'm actually curious to hear other people's thoughts who've seen any of this stuff. So feel free to comment and let us know.
Yep, please do.
But
and if there's anything that we got wrong, let us know.
My final recommendation, if you're like us anyway, watch Dimensional Castle, skip the rest. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that 100%.
Awesome.
That castle was amazing. Everything else, yeah.
Yep. I'm like I said, I'm curious to hear what other people think if you've seen any of them. But
me too.
Yeah.
But I'm still glad we did watch it so we can talk about it like this. So.
Yeah. No, me too. I mean, it was fun watching through this stuff. Like even the stuff in the Goemon anime where, we were getting really bored or just weren't into it at all. Like we were still making jokes and just like having fun.
You and I were joking and making fun of what was going on. Yeah. But, I mean, it is better to watch with somebody so you can laugh together. I'll give it that. I would have fallen asleep hundreds of times if it was just me.
Yep. Certainly not the most engaging anime.
No.
All right.
That's all I got.
Yep. I feel like we've said all there is to be said about the Goemon animated universe. So there you go.
Great.
Yep. And as always, thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have more Goemon content for you soon. I don't know when I'm going to release this, but maybe before Mystical Ninja 64. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We'll go from one of our least favorite Goemon things to our favorite Goemon thing. How does
Absolutely. That sounds good to me.
All right. Well, we'll see you all for that one then.
Sounds good.
Yep. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye for now.